Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Today's video is going to be my October book reviews and it is going to be a long one. You've been pre-warned, I have 7 things to review right now. So it's going to be a long one. Get down, get cozy. I'm going to get straight into it. So first up I read William Golding's Lord of the Flies. You might have heard about this book, it's kind of famous. This came out in 1954 and in English schools, so many schools do this text and have to study it and do exams on it and different stuff. Now I did a full video review on this book, so I'll link that down below if you want more in-depth thoughts and feelings on it. I will just summarise. This is about a load of English boys get deserted on a desert island and there is no adults. So it's basically children having to govern themselves and it doesn't go that well. But as I said, I've done a full video review on it, so you can go and check that out if you want. I enjoyed this book. I thought that the middle got a little bit bratty for me because the boys were just arguing quite a lot, but I go more into depth in that video down below. So that was first up. And then I actually read this in September, but I didn't do a September book reviews video because this is all I read in September. It's a hunker of a book, and this is The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman, La Belle, Sauvage, Volume 1. I actually got sent this by the publishers, so thank you Penguin for this. And I did another full video on this. I did actually a reading diary on it. So whilst I was reading this book, I was telling you like what I felt of it. I also did a review of the audiobook of it because they sent me the audiobook as well. So if you want my like whilst I'm reading it thoughts, then I'll link that video down below as well. And also if you just like my reading vlogs, that's down there. So I'm going to be super vague about this book because I feel like it can be so easily spoiled. You have this boy and he works in an inn that his parents run and he has a happy little life, and there's a girl who works in the inn as well who he kind of bickers with and doesn't get along with her, but everything's fine. And then there's a nunnery near where they live and he goes to visit the nuns and he's friends with the nuns and really likes them. Then one day when he's working in the inn, this mysterious stranger, this tall dark handsome man comes in and says, "Do you know anything about the nuns having a baby?" And he says, "What on earth are you talking about? The nuns don't have a baby. Why would they have a baby?" And then the little boy starts to realise the nuns have a baby. And so it's about whose baby is that? Who's after the baby? Why have the nuns got the baby? And everything to do with that. And that's why I'm not going to spoil you on that. Also, everyone has these kind of creatures that you could kind of call pets, but they're all different animals that can morph into different shapes. So someone has like a leopard who can attack and all these different animals. Every person has one of them. So it's a really interesting thing as well. This is obviously an adventure story, and then a massive flood happens and somehow the boy ends up on a boat with the girl who worked in the inn who he kind of bickers with and the baby. And it's just those two children with a child, the baby, in this massive flood. Really great book. If you like Dickens, this is the book for you. And I adore Charles Dickens. My favourite Dickens is Great Expectations. I love the level of detail Dickens puts in. I adore. Philip Pullman is very similar. Everything is built up in the world. Everything is detailed. Everything is like put in place. There's nothing that your imagination has to really make up for itself because he gives you everything and paints such a vivid, beautiful picture of like the scenery. Oh, I loved it. I really, really did enjoy this, and I'm not massively into adventure stories, but this really grasped me. Loved this, so there's my review, but then I do have a reading diary down below if you want to check it out. Next up I have The Reluctant Fundamentalist, and this is by Mohsin Hamid. This is about, right, so when it starts, you are basically a character in the story. So the reader is a character, and you are an American man, you're quite hostile, and you're in Pakistan. So you're sitting in Pakistan and then all of a sudden this man comes up to you and goes, "Hello, I'm from Pakistan, but I see you are American and I am a friend of America and I actually spent a lot of time in America. Let me sit down next to you and tell you my tale." So then it flips into him talking about it. So our main character, who was born in Pakistan, raised in Pakistan, his family had money and he got into Princeton University in America, which is a very prestigious university. He got into there, did really well, and then he fell in love with this girl who she doesn't really love him back because her last boyfriend died. So she's very mentally ill and it goes into everything to do with that. And then he gets a top job and is talking about all his time in America and how he fell in love with America and he was living the American dream, the immigrant's American dream. Go to America, anything can happen. You can be whoever you want to be, you know, the land of hope and dreams. But it's so interesting because he'll be telling you this and you're really into the story and you're like, okay, so he was 18 and this was happening, and then all of a sudden he'll go, "Oh, you're standing up, my friend. the lights have gone out in this cafe. In Pakistan, there's often blackouts. Don't worry, sit back down, my friend. Do not look hostile. No one here is to harm you. Sit back down. And he's talking directly to you. And I find when authors talk directly to the reader, it can be a little bit cringy. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're trying to get you in on the joke, but it breaks the magic of the story. Whereas this was done so well. I believed I was American mad, like jumping up when the lights come up and being very like Western and oh I don't know. And when the food comes, he's saying like you have to eat with your hands, and there's so many like cultural things that he's talking about their meal in this restaurant, and he's saying like, oh, you might not want to try that food because you might not be used to our like food over here and different stuff, but let me tell you about my story. So a few years had passed, and he goes back into the story again. So everything's going well for him when he went to America. Everything's going well, but when the story begins, he says, I once went to America, but he kind of foreshadows that it didn't work out for him. So everything's going well, you're thinking, oh my god, he's got like a great job, he's really intelligent, he's doing well, and then 9/11 happened in America. And obviously, he being a Pakistani man in America at that time, he got a lot of racial abuse, and he really talks about that, and that's really interesting, and also how his hostility towards America started to grow, because he says in it, Afghanistan is Pakistan's neighbour, and so when America retaliated against 9/11 and everything in Afghanistan, that put pressure on Pakistan, so he goes back to see his family, and he realises how much damage America is doing in this retaliation. Also, another interesting point, which obviously isn't something that I'd get because I'm from England, so it was so good. Like, this book is so good, guys. Like, I'm trying to control myself, be like, give it a proper book review and then you can gush about it, but like, loved it. Anyway, there's a bit in it where he says, in America, after 9/11, a lot of American flags were everywhere, and there were big posters like we stand together and we unite against terrorism and all this different stuff. And he said to Americans it was probably very comforting, it was probably a very nice thing, showing support for each other, but he said as an immigrant in America it was scary, because it felt like if you're not American you can't be a part of this movement, you can't be a part of this solidarity, you are the enemy. And it felt very us and them, and that was really interesting. And also I found it so interesting the bits where he was talking about he was being racially abused, people were actually like shouting things at him in the street, but then there was also like softer racial abuse, that people are like being well-meaning but really being very backward in the way they're talking. So after 9/11 he gets racially abused and everything, and then he becomes very disillusioned with America. And he is kind of seeing the troubles that they're causing for Pakistan and around the world, and he's thinking about like civilians that are going to have to like die for this when it's nothing to do with them, 9/11, but you know, in war there's always casualties of civilians, and so he's thinking about everything like that. And he's tried to fit in with America, but it's not working because 9/11's happened. He's got dark skin, he's saying I can't change my skin, so I'm not fitting in, so I'm just going to be whoever I want to be. So then he decides to grow a beard. And people there's this kind of tone around him of, you're doing that to antagonise people, aren't you? Like, come on, you're an Indian man in America, why are you growing a beard? You're doing that to make people feel uncomfortable, don't do it, you don't need to. And it's like he's literally just growing a beard, and it's that like well-meaning, I'm not a racist, but I think you could change this about yourself to make yourself fit in. It's like, why should he have to? He hasn't done anything wrong. Tolerance to racism is just as bad as racism, in my opinion. And the whole thing with the beard was like so subtly done within it, but so poignant, so well written. And it's kind of those well-meaning people that are part of the problem as well. They're like, oh, let me do you a favour, I'll tell you how you can fit in more. And it's like, he's fitting in perfectly fine. Like, if everyone could just stop with their like views on different stuff and just let him live and be, that'd be fine. We don't need your opinion. Oh guys, like I could talk about this all day long, I honestly could. And I loved how you were like so immersed in the story, and then he'd be like, our food has arrived, and then the food would be there and you'd be, oh my god. And it was so emotional, honestly. It was just one of those books that I will remember forever. This is going to be like my top books of the year. We know this already, like I'm going on and on about it, but it was just such a good book. I absolutely adored this. So yes, everyone read The Reluctant Fundamentalist. It is so good, it is so poignant, it is so well written, it is just genius. A genius book. must move on to other things because we will be here all day. But I made you a whole video on this book because it's so good. Next up I have an Anne Cassidy. Anne Cassidy, you probably can't see, but there's a whole shelf of 6 books here that I've already read of hers. This one is Guilt Trip. So Anne Cassidy does YA crime. It's normally a teenage girl is the main character and she's telling you what's happened, but a very serious adult crime has happened and she's a part of the story, or she has to work out the story, something happens within it. So with this, you have the girl, let me tell you her name. The girl in this book is called Alison, but people call her Allie. So Alison is at the park with her friends, and then she sees a boy who she goes to school with who she's not really friends with, and she knows he's been like picked on in the past, tries to commit suicide, and they manage to stop him from committing suicide. That's right at the beginning, that's not a spoiler. And then the teacher says to her and her group of friends, why don't you start hanging out with this boy Daniel who tried to commit suicide, because you are the ones that like saved his life and saw him, and he really needs friends and he needs help and he needs that kind of like contact with people. And so they decide to build kind of a friendship with Daniel. That's all I'm going to say about it, and then everything just goes like wild as it does in Anne Cassidy. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was really good. I thought it was also really good about like peer pressure and about how as a teenager like you want to impress people and you want to be someone's friend and you want to be seen as like cool, so you'll do stuff that you know is wrong, and she knows that stuff's wrong within this that she does. I felt at the end it went a little bit too wild. Anne Cassidy normally is very relatable, and in this they spoke about Southend. I'm from Southend-on-Sea, so it was a very like relatable thing for me. It's very normal, the girls are, and their lives are very normal, but at the end it just went a bit too Hollywoody for me. But I did still think this was a good book though. I was still like cover to cover, I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, what's going to happen next, what's going to happen? And all her friends, so something happens and then all her friends react differently, and so it goes into their different reactions, which I found really interesting within it. I did still really enjoy this. So even though at the end was a bit much for me, I still really enjoyed that. I love Anne Cassidy. I would recommend her. If you're into like crime, Anne Cassidy is the person for you. And also she's just like such an easy read, but at the same time it's very in depth and it's very much about how people relate as human emotions, just like tragic happening, like a kidnap, a murder, a death, like so much different stuff. Really like Anne Cassidy. So next up, still so much more. So I've got 3 more things to review. This is The Dogs of Littlefield by Suzanna Berne. Now this is set in America and it's about loads of wealthy people. So they're wealthy, they live in this gorgeous little town, it's all stunning, it's all lovely, but they're all got problems, because just because they have money doesn't mean they don't have problems. So like someone's marriage isn't going very well and they're heading towards divorce, and this woman starts like seeing things that aren't there, and then this other woman, her son, her teenage boy is going tear away, and so she's worried about that. Then all of a sudden, all these signs keep coming up in the park saying, tame your beast. We don't want dogs in the park, because people take their dogs off leash and let their dogs roam around. So someone's putting up these like aggressive signs saying, we don't want your dogs off leash in the park. The park is for everyone, not just dog owners. Then someone poisons the dogs, and it's very bizarre. All these dogs start dying and they can't work out how they're getting poisoned, but it's something to do with the park. Someone's putting something down, the dogs are eating them and getting poisoned, but they don't know who's doing it. So all the little problems that everyone has are being exacerbated by these dogs being killed. So all their fear is like, my marriage isn't working out. Now it's turned into, my marriage isn't working out and it's unsafe to live here, and it's just hyping up all the problems that they have, that kind of underlying problems. I thought this wasn't really a book for me, to be honest with you. The idea of it, the really takeaway of it, is that even if you have money, rich people still have problems. I understand that. I understand that rich people can still have mental health issues. They can still have marriage problems. They can have problems with their children. So the book I felt wasn't really for me. I didn't really get it. And it was told by so many different people's points of view, but none of them were really explored that deeply. And there is a doctor. There's a doctor who comes into town. And she's an Indian woman and she wears a turban, and all the different characters react to her kind of differently. They're like, what is she doing here? Because it's a white town. What is she doing here? I don't really understand. But they're all nice to her. They're just like different to them, and they don't hang out with people who aren't white. So there's that kind of bit within it. And the doctor, she's very well travelled, and she looks at everyone and says, all these people know nothing of the real world. Their problems are nothing compared to war zones and different stuff like that. And I fully got that kind of narrative of it, but people still have problems even if they have money. So that kind of didn't make sense within the story for me, because she decides she's going to write about the people in the town and how like stupid they are to be worrying about their marriages and different stuff. But I think belittling people's problems doesn't help either. Doesn't help the situation. I really don't know what this book was trying to do. This book reminded me of a film called Friends with Money. And in that film, Jennifer Aniston's character doesn't have any money, but all her friends are wealthy. And all her friends, even though they have money, they still have problems. It's a really great film. Like, you should watch it. It's a very good film. And it's the idea of you can have money and be successful and be living this dream world in your dream job, but still have problems within your self-esteem, within your marriage, whatever it is. And I think that film is really good. It's done really well. I just didn't get the point. Like, I've got to be honest with you, I didn't get what she was doing with it. I didn't get the point of the book. Was it that rich people have, tell me if you've read it, rich people have problems too? Shocked, like what? I didn't, no, that wasn't a book for me at all. I think if you're someone who like doesn't think rich people have problems, then maybe that's a book for you. But I think also another thing that it didn't approach at all is that rich people can still have problems, of course, but they have choice, because money gives you choice. So say you're wealthy and you have an illness, you have a choice. You can get private healthcare and you have more of a choice of how to be saved. Whereas if you don't have money, you don't have that choice. I go into every book thinking, I hope I like it. Not too high expectations, not low, I hope I like it. And when you invest so much time into a book and it's so disappointing and it has like no substance to it, you know me, I absolutely hate that. So that book was just not for me. Next up, I have a book which I've done a whole video review on. This is Banana Yoshimoto, and it is Kitchen, and I said the name wrong, sorry. But I did a whole video review on this book that you can I'll link down below and you can check it out. This is two separate stories. It's set in Japan, and this video is going on long enough, so you can check out the video review. I loved this. I absolutely adored it. If you want any reasons to read this book, why you should buy it, why you should read it, check out that video because they give you loads of reasons, because I just adored it. So there's that. The writing, oh, stunning. She's such a skilled author. And the last thing for my crown slips off my little head here is a picture book. I just thought I'd end on like a fun thing. This is Angelina's Halloween. I got this from a charity shop, and the story is by Katharine and Holabird. The illustrations are by Helen Craig, and these two women have created the most beautiful book. So it's obviously all about just Halloween night, but the pictures within it are just, can you see that? Stunning. I actually have this picture up on my Instagram, so if you want to like see it a little bit better, just everything is stunning, and it's a lovely little story. So it's about Angelina the ballerina, if you know her, that old girl. Her sister wants to dress up like her, and she's kind of quite mean to her sister. She's like, oh, you can't dress up like me. And then she kind of forgets about her sister, and it's like, don't forget about your siblings on Halloween, okay? Don't think you're better than them. And so I liked that. I thought that was good. And that's it. That's finally it. That's the end of the video. You may be dismissed now. Like a teacher. Sorry. Tell me if you've read any of those books and what you think of them. And also tell me what was a book that you read in October that you loved, that you think I should read. So leave that down below as well, and I will take this off because it's just slipping down my face, and I will see you again soon for another video. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then comment and like, and I know that you liked it. And also check out all the videos that are in the description if you want like further details on the books that I've discussed. I'm going to start doing a lot more individual book reviews, so like one book review per video, because I think it's just more me, so I can get a little bit more chatty. So that's it, end of the video. You can go now. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.